The story centers on one of the most powerful economic systems in history, the Abbasid Caliphate, built around the city of Baghdad. This might challenge what you think you know about wealth, progress, and where modernity actually came from. While much of Western Europe was fragmented, localized, and economically narrow, one city was doing the opposite, deliberately, at scale, and with stunning success. It wasn't improvising its way into prosperity. It was engineered for it. The period is often labeled the Islamic Golden Age, but that phrase, while flattering, hides the machinery. It suggests a glow, a cultural bloom, rather than a system. What actually powered this explosion of wealth and innovation was something more precise: institutional design. The Abbasid Caliphate did not stumble into prosperity. It constructed an economic engine and placed Baghdad at its center. In 762, Caliph Al-Mansur made a decision that would quietly reshape global trade for centuries. Instead of ruling from an inherited imperial capital, he ordered the construction of a new one. Baghdad was built from scratch, circular in design, administratively centralized, and strategically positioned along the Tigris River. Its location was not symbolic. It was mathematical. To the east lay Persia, India, and China. To the south stretched the Indian Ocean trade network linking East Africa and Southeast Asia. To the west stood Byzantium and the Mediterranean world. To the north extended Central Asia. Goods, people, ideas, and capital could flow in every direction. But geography alone does not create wealth. Many cities have sat on trade routes and remained peripheral. What made Baghdad different was absorption. It was designed not merely to sit at a crossroads, but to manage it. From the beginning, the Abbasids treated infrastructure as strategy. Roads, canals, markets, and administrative centers were core functions of the state. Taxation systems were organized. Legal frameworks were formalized. Commercial disputes were adjudicated through recognized courts. This predictability created something rare in economic history: trust. Trust allowed merchants to transact across thousands of miles. Trust allowed contracts to mean something beyond immediate force. Trust allowed credit to move faster than metal. At a time when much of Europe operated on localized economies with limited coin circulation and fragile long-distance networks, Baghdad normalized distance. Silk from China, spices from India, gold from Africa, furs from the north, textiles from the Mediterranean. These were not occasional luxuries. They were continuous flows. More importantly, the Abbasid economy diversified. It did not depend on a single commodity or region. If one route weakened, others compensated. If one market cooled, another expanded. The system was built with redundancy, a concept modern finance would later formalize as risk distribution. Financial innovation was central to this success. Transporting gold and silver over long distances was dangerous and inefficient. So merchants relied on credit instruments that allowed value to move without physical metal. Early forms of bills of exchange enabled traders to deposit funds in one city and withdraw them in another. These mechanisms depended on reputation networks reinforced by legal enforcement. In effect, capital circulated faster, farther, and more securely than in most other parts of the world at the time. This required institutions. Courts resolved disputes. Contracts were documented. Fraud was penalized. Markets were regulated enough to prevent chaos, but not so tightly that enterprise suffocated. The state did not micromanage commerce, it lowered friction. That distinction is critical. Wealth in Baghdad was not merely accumulated, it moved. And movement multiplies value. Yet commerce alone does not explain the Abbasid explosion. Knowledge was treated as infrastructure. The Abbasids sponsored a vast translation movement, bringing works of mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, and philosophy from Greek, Persian, and Indian traditions into Arabic. This was not cultural nostalgia. It was economic pragmatism. Better mathematics improved accounting and navigation. Astronomy refined calendars and maritime timing. Medicine extended productive life. Engineering strengthened irrigation and urban planning. Knowledge increased efficiency, and efficiency increased output. Institutions such as the House of Wisdom functioned not as decorative libraries, but as research centers. Scholars were salaried. Translation was incentivized. Debate was institutionalized. An intellectual class became economically integrated. Urban life reflected this complexity. Baghdad grew into one of the largest cities in the world. Markets specialized. Crafts diversified. Public amenities, baths, hospitals, schools became embedded features of urban life. Specialization created interdependence. Merchants relied on scribes. Officials relied on administrators. Scholars relied on patrons. A dense ecosystem emerged where each role reinforced another. This structural integration distinguished Baghdad from much of post-Roman Western Europe, where urban decline and fragmented authority constrained long-distance commerce, while Europe would later rise through similar patterns of connectivity and institutional stability. Baghdad had already demonstrated the blueprint, but systems built on connectivity require coordination, and coordination strains under scale. As the Abbasid Caliphate expanded, governance became more complex. Regional governors gained autonomy. Military leaders accumulated leverage, tax revenues that once flowed predictably toward Baghdad. Fragmented across provinces, political cohesion weakened. Wealth at scale depends on enforcement. Contracts only function if authority sustains them. Credit only flows when defaults are predictable. Long-distance trade requires dispute resolution without violence. As central authority eroded, these guarantees weakened, not overnight, but gradually. Gradual decay is harder to detect than sudden collapse at the same time. Specialization increased dependency. Baghdad's prosperity relied on uninterrupted flows of grain. Shipments, caravan routes, administrative competence, and provincial tax transfers. When flows slowed or diverted, fragility increased. Internal power struggles diverted resources. Military spending rose. Incentives shifted from long-term investment toward short-term extraction. The system did not immediately fail. It absorbed shocks for centuries, but its resilience thinned. The final blow came in 1258 when Mongol forces under Hulagu Khan besieged Baghdad. The city fell. Infrastructure was destroyed. Libraries were burned. Administrative continuity collapsed. Yet the Mongols did not destroy a perfectly stable system. They shattered one already strained by fragmentation. Connectivity had weakened. Coordination had thinned. The siege accelerated a structural decline already underway. What followed illustrates a fundamental economic truth. When connectivity breaks, prosperity fragments, trade networks unraveled, credit systems collapsed, specialized labor dispersed. Wealth did not smoothly migrate to a new center. It scattered. Baghdad's rise and fall reveal a pattern that transcends era or ideology. Wealth follows connection. Stability follows institutions. Prosperity follows trust. These principles are not medieval artifacts. Modern financial hubs thrive not because they produce everything, but because they connect everything. Innovation clusters emerge where capital, talent, and information circulate freely. Economic strength flows toward places that reduce friction. The Abbasid Golden Age was not accidental brilliance. It was engineered connectivity sustained by institutional trust. Its decline was not mystical inevitability. It was structural strain. No system is immune to overextension. No economy survives indefinite fragmentation of authority. When incentives shift from maintenance to extraction, when coordination fails, when complexity outpaces governance, decline becomes self-generating. Baghdad's story is not a moral tale about virtue or destiny. It is a structural lesson about systems. For centuries, the Abbasid Caliphate demonstrated that prosperity could be designed, scaled, and sustained through openness, stability, and intellectual investment. It showed that wealth is not simply conquered or inherited, it is enabled. And when enabling structures fracture, even the richest city in the world can become vulnerable. History did not erase Baghdad because it lacked greatness. It receded from dominant narratives as new centers rose. But when we widen the lens, the lesson remains unmistakable. Wealth follows connectivity, power follows coordination, and when those foundations weaken, decline does not require an enemy. It unfolds on its own.